Hello everyone, once again. What's up? How are you guys doing? So first of all, good evening and namaskar. On my show today, I have the Chris too, the very popular designer known for his great designs. He's an award winner, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about him. And today's session is exclusively about designs. In my sessions, when I teach people about personal branding, I see there are four C's which is very important in a journey of an influencer. The first C is the clarity with respect to what you really wanna be on social media, because half of those people out there don't have a clarity on what they should be on social media. So that's the first important C one need to get sorted. Number two is content. Of course, your content bucket plays a very important role, because without content, you will never be in a position to convince people to connect with you. So content is the second C, which plays very important role. The third C is the creativity. Without being creative on social media, you cannot distinguish yourself, and that's important. So I always say, when the content is king, creativity is the queen. I repeat, when content is king, creativity is queen, and it's important for you to bring both of them together and have a marriage between both of them. Hi Chris, happy to see you. And the last C is consistency. So we're gonna say hello to Chris and let's welcome Chris. I'm just sending him a friend's request. I'm sending him a live request right now. So let's take a quick moment.
Hello.
Hi Chris, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Chris, so happy to have you on my show today, and I'm super excited to host you. So Chris, before I start, I would like to do a quick introduction about you to people who are watching the show right now. So just for everyone, Chris too is an Emmy Award winning designer, director, CEO and chief strategist of Blind, and the founder of the Futur, which is an online education platform with the mission of teaching 1 billion people how to make a living doing what they love. Chris has been a professor. He has taught sequential design for about 15 years at the Art Center College of Design, as well as Otis College of Art and Design. I'm so excited to have him on my show. Chris, are you ready for today's session?
I am so ready.
Fantastic. Can I shoot the first question to you? Before that, I just would like to know, what's the time there? It's 8:30 a.m.
It is 8:30 a.m. Yes.
Fantastic. So thank you, Chris, for agreeing to do this session early in the morning. It means a lot to me and to everyone in India who's watching the show at the moment. All of you in the chat, type down and say welcome, Chris. If you guys are watching this and gonna waiting for some knowledge bomb from him, type down and say welcome, Chris. All right. So Chris, I have few questions for you, and I'll start this this session with the first question. And the question is, what's your biggest inspiration as a designer, and what inspired you to choose this as your career of all the options that you possibly had?
Okay. I have to answer this question in a couple different ways. Initially, my biggest inspiration for design is other designers, people that I looked up to. So when I was going to school, it'd be names like David Carson, Joseph Vila Brockman, Jan Jacold, Saul Bass, the greats, the legends of graphic design. And as I got older, I stopped looking at design because I feel like there's only so much you can take in from the design world and put out something that's fresh and new. So I started looking into the world of art, illustration, photography, architecture, industrial design, and mixing those things in. Now, if you're asking me today, like, what's my biggest inspiration? My biggest inspiration are people outside of the design field, people like Seth Godin, Blair Enns, who contribute ideas that I think I can teach creative people.
Wow, that's amazing. Chris, are you right now at your working desk? Or is that your work desk?
This is my work desk. This is,
Okay.
I'm at home right now. So this is my office. Yeah, that's
so
my whiteboard.
You work from home. Oh, that's your whiteboard. Wow. All right.
Yeah. I work from home right now because everybody's working from home, right?
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Chris, thank you for the answer there. What design trends do you see in designing, or I would rather ask, what trends are you planning to set for the year 2020 and 2021?
You know, I think a lot of young designers want to know what the trends are so they can be on trend. but I think that's an empty pursuit because by the time you realize something is on trend, you probably have missed it. I think it's more important for us as creatives to find our own voice, to kind of to tap into what makes us unique and put that out into the world, because you're going to be the trailblazer. You're the person who's going to be setting the trend. And I think right now, if you look into the past, it's a lot easier to say like what was trending and what is in style right now. But I just don't think that's so important. I think that's a shortcut for a lot of people, and you wind up chasing your own tail. Just do what feels right for you, and it's okay to try different things.
Okay, so you're trying to say that it's up to innovation. Instead of following a trend, set a trend is what you're what you feel is good is the new trend.
I think so, and I think we got, like I said, this is a powerful charged word, and so I have a very emotional reaction to this word trend. If you go out to set a trend, and that's your goal, I just don't think you're going to get there either. I don't think people set out to set trends. They just do what's important and interesting to them, and then other people take notice, and if enough people do similar kinds of things, it becomes a trend. For example, your shirt is actually very bold and lively right now. And if you started to integrate that color and that pattern in the designs that you do, just because you love it so much, and people start to take notice, like, that's really cool. And so that's how these things happen. It's not because you're sitting in a room thinking, I have a finger on what's going on. I'm just going to do what's going to trend, and this is going to blow up, right? Somebody had told me yesterday or recently that, oh, Chris, you started a new trend in guest posting. I'm like, it's not really a new idea. I'm just using it. And if more people know about it from me, then they'll just give me the credit. People have been guest posting and doing these kinds of things for a really long time.
But actually, you set the trend. To be honest, I looked at your profile and approached quite a few people and asked them this question: can I do a guest posting on your Instagram? And they're like, how does it even work? So I'm like, okay. So not many people know that if you go and check Chris' profile, there are a lot of these posts which are not his, but these are guest posts. But it's a brilliant idea, right? Like while we were doing guest blogging, this is a very smartly optimized idea of doing guest posts on someone's profile. I think I have not seen that anywhere else, but on your profile, Chris. So I think you are setting the trend up there.
See, and I was doing it because I was just trying to fulfill a need. There were people in my community who need help. They really do need help. And they've been working for months, years on their account, and it's not seeing a lot of growth. And then I check their feed, and I think, oh, this is really good. More people need to know about you. And I've tried before to put a spotlight on them, but it hasn't worked. It didn't work. It didn't help them all that much. It didn't help my audience either. So then I put out this message and said, if you want to be featured on my channel, you have to write something that feels like it's me writing it so that people will get value. And so it's going to take a lot of work and energy. So now, of course, my message box is blowing up, but it's like really junky posts because they haven't put in the effort. So the people who have made it on my channel is because they put in some effort, or they already had a high value piece of content, and they're saying, here's the best thing I've ever done. Will this work on your channel? And then we talk and we make some adjustments to the design.
Wow. So it's a sense of a competition in your community.
I don't know. Or maybe, yeah, maybe accomplishment, less competition.
Yeah, accomplishment. That's a nice word to put across.
Mm-hmm.
I like the trend, and I think people, I mean, I can set this trend in my community there. And thank you for this idea, Chris. Okay. Chris, what's the design tool that you use at the moment?
This is the easy one. It's Keynote. I use Keynote almost always in conjunction with some of the Creative Suite from Adobe. So it's Keynote is like the 1-2 punch. Keynote's the right hand. Left hook is probably Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. That's my bread and butter, those three programs.
Keynote, Adobe Illustrator, and Photoshop. These are three tools that you use. So you say all your carousel posts are done using Keynote, or combination of these three?
Usually a combination of these three, but the foundation is Keynote. I jump out of Keynote because I need to make an element or do something a little trickier than Keynote can make, but I try to stay in Keynote most always.
Wow. So I've never ever taken Keynote seriously till date, and I think this is something that I'll take forward. So a lot of people don't know how to use Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop. A lot of people are amateur designers, especially the budding influencers. They really can't do this because they feel that this is too much of technical stuff. Because of course, as a designer, you learn the tools, but many people don't have time to do that. So what are those top 5 design apps that comes to your mind that people can use on their mobile phones to get their quick designs rolling? Of course, you wouldn't validate saying that sort of there's nothing called quick designs, but I know that there will be still people who want to get something rolled out quickly, creatively. What would be those 5 apps that you would recommend to them?
I like Snapseed a lot from Google, which allows you to make color adjustments. It's kind of like Photoshop Lite, and that's what I use if I'm on the road. And I don't use a ton of mobile apps to design with. And Keynote is actually available on your mobile as well. So you can use Keynote, and it's very robust, and I think it's a good tool to use as well. And now, more so than ever, most of the Creative Suite is being released on mobile. So there's a tablet version of Photoshop and a tablet version of Adobe Illustrator, and it's really good. Now, here's the thing. You say it's hard to learn these things. Okay, there's a couple things. I think the foundation, the ticket, the price of entry is to learn the tools. If you don't learn the tools, what are you saying? You're just going to be a wannabe all your life. And there's so many people giving away amazing tutorials. One person from India, Unmesh Dinda, Pix Imperfect. He's a master at Photoshop, and he's a 20-year-old. And so if a 20-year-old can learn something in his bedroom, what's stopping you? The other thing that you need to know is this, is learning the tools, things that are difficult, help to act as a filter to prevent people who just kind of like think of it as a hobby, right? And so if you're on this side of the hobby, you're not going to be a professional. But if you push through the pain, the difficulty of acquiring the tools, the knowledge, the techniques, then you're going to be in a different group of people. And then you want it to be hard. So you got to embrace a little bit of the pain and the struggle.
Wow, I like that. A little bit of pain and a struggle to master a tool, and then you just said somebody who is 20 years old sitting at home and has mastered the tool, then anybody can master it up, which is right. It's just a matter of putting our effort and focus and attention towards one thing. So that's a good one. So while designing Instagram posts, I see that there is a set pattern that you have. Like you have a starting slide, then you have a conclusion, and I like the way you do the storytelling. What are those few things, Chris, that one needs to keep in mind while designing the Instagram carousel post, which is in trend? So what are some of the important parameters to keep that as a checklist that people can look into?
Okay, the reason why I follow a very strict formula is because I've experimented with what works and I found out what doesn't work. So I've gone through a lot of trial and error. And if everybody's interested in doing well with carousel posts on their own channel, listen up right now. The first thing you have to do is you have to grab my attention. You have to pull me in. If your first slide, the headline is like weak and it's soft, it's not really getting me emotionally stirred up, I'm just going to keep swiping. Remember, your whole objective is to stop people from flipping to the next thing. So it takes an image, usually a color or a really attention-grabbing headline to pull you in. How do you know what's an attention-grabbing headline? If you go to the supermarket, you'll see tabloid magazines, and they have very attention-grabbing headlines, like alien lands on Earth, mom gives baby to pet fish. I don't know. It's crazy, and it grabs your attention. Like you won't believe what happens next. This is how they look today. Those are kinds of things that you can learn from. Now, you probably don't want to talk like that, but those are the mechanics that trigger you to kind of pique your curiosity, so you dive in. And if you follow a certain flow, you'll notice that on most of the carousels that I share, it has to be edited down really tightly. Most people make this mistake, and they copy paste text from the internet and they paste it into the carousel. It's like, I don't want to read what I could read on the internet because it's this small. So what you have to do is you have to understand what it is that you're saying and reduce, like you're boiling it down, reducing it down to super concentrated, like I understand it simply and I can explain it simply to another person. Otherwise, I'm going to go on the web and read. Okay, one idea per slide. This is another critical one because people try to put in too many things. One of the early mistakes that I made was I tried to put too much information in 10 slides. Take a big idea and distribute it across several carousels. You have many carousels to make the idea. Reduce it down. The last thing, and probably the most important thing, is you have to think about this. What is my audience going to find to be valuable? That they're going to walk away and say, I learned something new today. This is insightful. What I'm seeing 80% of the time are just people regurgitating something they saw somebody else post. Well, why would I want to read it from you? Especially, why would I want to share it on my feed? Because either I've said it already, or people that have been influenced by me are saying it, and now you're like the 7th, 8th generation copy, and it's terrible. Let's do that. Last thing is keep the design simple. Simple colors, simple typography. Don't add drop shadows, inlines, glow effects, gradients all over the place. It's really messy. It's visual clutter and noise. I don't want that.
Wow. I think that last 2 minutes was like so much of knowledge. Key takeaways. Number one, focus on picture, focus on simple fonts, or I would say focus on typography, colors, and headline. These are some of the important parameters to attract someone, and keep one message in one slide and don't clutter. So that's some really cool takeaways, because carousel is the in thing, and I think that's the trend. And a lot of this trend comes from Chris and his students. So I do see that many of your students are setting that trend up, and they're doing a brilliant job. In fact, I've kept you and your work as my benchmark in my team. And I've sent them the links, and I said, please look into what they are doing. And maybe I should buy your course too, because I think that's going to help a lot of us to learn. Chris, what's the color psychology and their role in designs? Like, I see you don't have a color pattern. Many of them are following a strict Instagram color pattern. Like I do red, and I always stick on to red. But you don't do that. So what's the color psychology? And would you like to bring some user case or any ideas that you have with respect to colors that you want to put across to us today?
Very good. That's a very good question. So let's talk about consistency and branding. Now, if you always use the color red and a certain typeface, let's say you use Trade Gothic Bold Condensed number 20, always. And it's a combination of certain colors. So you're staying very much on brand. And I think that's very good for you, because when people land on your page, they're going to like see this is very consistent. So there are other people who do all yellow, all blue, all orange, whatever it is. And I think that works really well for them. I find that for me as a person, and I don't look at myself so much as a personal brand, but a curator of ideas, things that are going to be insightful to you. So I look at Instagram more like a magazine. So the magazine has certain themes, certain fonts, but what's inside, each feature, each article is going to be tailored for the content. So I like to work with different colors and images depending on what is being said. Today, this morning, the post came out, and it's about checking in with yourself. It's mindset work. So I wanted a soothing color, not too much contrast, nothing totally vibrating, because it was red and orange and yellow and super saturated. I feel like it's going against the message, right? So if my color palette was like the shocking yellow, well, how's that going to make me process this information? So I want to design for the content. So I added like a hand-done illustration style, some soothing colors, and I wanted to put a lot of white space because I want that person to feel this. So this is really important to me. Now, in terms of color psychology, there's a theory that certain colors activate parts of our brain. I'm not going to get too deep into that, because here's something I learned first semester in design school all the way back in the 90s, okay? Now, somebody had said, well, red, it means what? What does red mean? For a lot of people, it means passion, vibrancy, it means love, it means joy, it means spicy. And for some people, red means murder, horror, and fascism, and neo-Nazi. So it's like, well, what does red mean? So what you need to learn really quickly is the color doesn't mean a lot absent context. It needs some context for us to understand what is being communicated to us. So right now, your red looks joyful, it looks vibrant, it looks fresh. But red on a homicidal maniac, all red is going to look very, very different.
True. Wow, that's amazing. Very well explained. So a lot of people I see use just white and black, like how you have that on your website. Yeah. And why is that so?
Well, white and black, the opposite ends of the hue spectrum here, or value spectrum, it's the greatest amount of contrast. And contrast is one of the key principles of design. So when you put white on black or black on white, it's going to pop. And you'll see that a lot of designers, probably because we're not very comfortable with color and pattern, we just go with a black and white wardrobe. But I know in India, people are very not afraid of color at all. You guys have very vibrant culture and colors, and so you're not afraid to use that. It just depends culturally like what you're used to. Now, black and white, key is contrast, legibility, and it's gonna have a lot of pop. So the default is to use black and white.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for this brilliant answer, Chris. Chris, a lot of people say that a creative person is little absent-minded and a little messy person. Do you agree or disagree to this?
I think that's a pretty broad generalization, but probably mostly true. There's something about the generalizations. Absent-minded is another way of describing a dreamer, a divergent thinker. So absent-minded sounds like it's negative, like absent a mind. But if you say like I'm envisioning the future, I have a great imagination, I'm always curious, and I'm a divergent thinker. I think maybe that's a nicer and probably more accurate way to describe it. And I think
Okay.
this is what makes creative people really amazing. I can have this
Right.
conversation with you. I could be thinking about something else, and all of a sudden I find this connection. I bring those two things together. And then
Right.
people who aren't creative will look at it like, wow, that's magic. How did you come up with that? Right? And that's where the brilliance of the creative person is.
Cool. And do you think they are messy?
I think creativity, the act of creation and innovation is inherently messy and wasteful because you're doing something new and different. And so there's probably a diametrically opposed force working within the creative person is I want to make stuff and I shouldn't be so tight. I want to be able to explore, make horrible things. And in the mess, I've discovered something, those happy accidents that Bob Ross talks about. And you're like, wow, that's really cool. Like yesterday, I was trying to finish my carousel post and I was looking for a different kind of image, but this came up in the feed. I was like, this is interesting. I wasn't really planning on this, but it spoke to me and I hadn't planned on it. So those are where the accidents come in. The other force that's operating inside of us is we need to be somewhat tidy. We need to organize our files, our assets, our workspace so that it's a balance of the two, because otherwise it's total chaos and you can get nothing done. And it usually gets on my personal nerves when my office gets too messy, right?
Wow.
That's just the two forces that play there.
Wow, amazing. Guys, this is just going in the right direction. I'm having a lot of fun learning from Chris. If you guys are enjoying this session, just type down and say, love you, Chris. All of you in the chat, type down and say, love you, Chris. Okay, Chris, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
For one to become a great designer, what are some of the key qualities he or she cultivates? Like, I understand that he has to be very imaginative. That's one of the components that you've just rightly put across now. What else do you think is some of the important qualities that you see in a great designer?
Okay, this one I'm going to try to talk about the ideas that if I could design, I had a power to create an artificial being to be the greatest designer. Here's what I would probably do. And I'm just thinking this off the chest here, so bear with me. The first one is an abundance of curiosity, that when you explore something, go all the way down, like find out about it, become a deep diver. And I think a lot of the problems is people are very surfacey. They hear something and then they never think to themselves, what is behind this idea? How many more layers can I go down? My wife was looking at a pile of books in my office, and she said, what are all these books for? And why are they on the same subject? I said, well, here's the thing. I read a book that was super inspirational, and I looked in the back, and there's an index of the books that this person read. So naturally, I went on Amazon and bought all those books because I want to read what that person read. And so see, that's that spark of curiosity, the wanting to dive in deep, which is really going to fill your mind and your soul and your body and your intellect with things so that you have more to say to the world, because we are a reflection of our life experiences. So if we read books, it's a journey, it's a trip somewhere else into another person's head. And I think that's really important. I think you need to be fearless. And I'm going to talk about this for a little bit. Why do I say fearless? I don't mean like find the biggest person in your neighborhood and pick a fight. What I mean is the fear of perfectionism, the fear of being judged, the fear of other people's opinions not shining upon you. And I think that kills more creative ideas than anything else we're afraid to do. So what I want everybody to do is stop worrying about whether you're going to get follows, if anybody's going to engage with your post, if anybody likes your design. Go make 100 things. Just go make them and don't even worry about any of it, because that's the real beauty there, is because each time you make something, you learn from that process, and you should try to push yourself. Maybe not 500 degrees, but a few degrees each time. It's an opportunity for you to learn and to grow. And I think if we can just get over the fear of being judged by other people, that this is not the best work, this is the work that we can do today, we're going to grow so much. Last one is, I think we need to have a little sense of history. And this is tying into the first one, which is, I think a lot of people see something and they don't really understand where it comes from. And so they're quick to point to reference and say, oh, that's as deep as I'm willing to go. When you start to go back into time, you start to see like all the different visual experiments and the different styles that have emerged over the decades of design, so that you're standing on the shoulders of giants. You're not trying to reinvent things that they already figured out 50 years ago. That's not progress. That's just retreading old territory. So I think those three things really help, and the ability to communicate. And I want you to think about this. And a lot of people think, and they say, I'm a visual communicator. But what they need to understand is there's two parts to communication, the sender and the receiver.
True.
So you might send out a signal, but if nobody's receiving it or they're not receiving it as intended, you need to learn to tune your signal in so that they match up. This is a skill. It's not easy to do, but when you master it, it's an awesome thing to be able to possess and wield.
Wow, wow, that's deep. Thank you for such detailed insights about how to become a great designer. A lot of those insights were not technical, but a lot of these were based on the way you think, the way you carry yourself, and all of these small things matters. Chris, Instagram is largely about great visuals. Mostly it's the pictures that are changing the game, but the way you have been using carousels, a lot of typography, you still drive a lot of engagement. While the rule book of the Facebook has been less text, more visuals, you're changing the game. It's more text, less visuals. And what's the kind of engagement do you generally see on your typography-based posts when compared to just the generic visuals? Where do you see they both stand, according to your experience by far?
Very good question here. Okay, so I want to take a step back and explain something. I really believe in this, okay? You got to use what your mama gave you, okay? And mama didn't give me like incredible illustration skills. I'm not a photographer. I can take pretty good photos, but this is not how I define myself. So I start to think, what am I really? I'm a person who likes to talk, to articulate complex ideas and distill them into something very simple. I love typesetting and typography, and Helvetica is my best friend. So I'm going to use what my mama gave me, and I'm going to communicate to the world in a way that makes most sense to me. Now, prior to the carousels being able to post 10 slides, it was actually very difficult because mostly then I'd have to contain my idea all in one quote or one block of text. And like I said before, people don't really want to read that much on Instagram. So the ability to break out ideas into phrases is very similar to what I've been doing for most of my professional career. It's storyboarding, it's sequential design, it's editorial, and I have story beats and I have flow and I can design things to give you the best experience when you're trying to learn something. Now, if you take that all into consideration, if you use text and you don't have an idea, you don't have flow, and you put too much text into something, it's not going to work for you, right? So this is what I'm using, and it turns out there's a whole audience out here who wants to learn, not just look at either like super fit people or beautiful people or beautiful photography at exotic destinations. Those kinds of topics already well covered by people. Very hard to get into those spaces because they have tens of millions of followers. So how is somebody going to pay attention to you? Like I said to you at the beginning of our conversation, if you want to set a trend, all you have to do is go and figure out what makes me unique, what skill sets do I have, and what kind of point of view do I want to share with the world, and put that out there. And so use the tools that you have. For me, it happens to be typography, and the engagement for me is actually very, very high.
Wow, fantastic. So how cool, Chris, is font mixing in typography? Do you recommend mixing of font in single post to grab attention?
Yeah, it's very tempting to mix fonts, isn't it? Because I see people post and there's like 14 fonts on like 10 slides. And I think, this is a mess. If you know what you're doing, if you know what you're doing with design, if you're really good with design, go ahead, start mixing all kinds of fonts. Now, in the last post I just put up this morning, it's just using one typeface, it's Helvetica. And oftentimes it's just one weight. And sometimes I use two weights. So what I would say is this: use constraints as an opportunity to be innovative, not to rush to grab every color, every texture, every photo, and every typeface. So once you start to work within those constraints of like using one typeface, all right, live a little bit. Use two typefaces, put them together and see how they work, the combination of the two. And I had to resist the urge to put a second typeface in there, and I solved the problem without having to add another typeface. And I think in the end, the design benefited from that. So to me, constraints are a wonderful thing to help you with creativity.
Okay, and on this note, which is your favorite font of all? You might love one font and you possibly
you can't put me in that position, right? But if you gun to head, I would probably use Helvetica.
Helvetica, wow, that looks beautiful on your designs there. I have seen this as a design trend. There are a lot of designers they either smoke weed, or they just take a break and want to smoke.
Yeah.
They say that they get great design ideas when they smoke weed. Do you agree or do you disagree?
Well, since I'm not the person smoking weed, I can't answer that question. Look, we all have ways of getting into a creative space, and smoking weed is a chemical that changes the way you think, right? And I used to think like, my God, some of the most creative people I know smoke weed. Maybe I'm missing out on something. But
True.
there's that kind of control inside my brain. I want to know that it's from me and not because I'm dependent on some other kind of way of doing it. But you could argue that, I listen to music. I'm surrounded by art and design in my space. Maybe those are my drug. I don't know. And so I would caution everybody first to figure out the extent of your creativity, to know that you can rely on yourself so that you don't need to chase something to have some kind of handicap, artificial stimulant. But you could say coffee is one too. But so I'm not here to judge anybody. Whatever.
So which is yours?
I like to drink some tea. That's my beverage
Okay.
of choice, and I prefer
Okay.
jasmine tea of all the teas. And then I have a certain playlist that I listen to that's curated by me, just for me, that helps me to get into a certain rhythm. It sets my mind at ease. I think it turns my brain waves, I don't know if they're called beta waves. It tunes me in. I'm ready to get to work.
Chris, thank you for this, because every time I meet someone, they say me, Saurav, you should try weed because you're a creative person. This is only going to improve your ideas. I've not tested it yet. And I just want to check with you. Have you tested? Is it working, not working?
I'll tell you something. I'm a really boring person. I've never done any drugs. I don't drink alcohol ever in my entire life. I've drank coffee like a dozen times, and that's it. So my drug of choice is tea, and I get so much inspiration. I'm going to tell you something. These are my drugs of choice. Like, I like to read,
Wow,
right? And
amazing. So
I get so excited inside.
Agree, totally agree. What's the title of the book?
Oh, this one, this book I'm reading right now. It's called How to Design and Teach Workshops That Work Every Time. And I'm a teacher, right? So I'm like, this one just randomly popped up on Amazon. Nobody recommended it to me. It's kind of dry, but it's really just, I like to learn. So it's like, oh, that's a different way of thinking about something, right? And I'm reading books here there's a whole stack of books. Like, basically, I grab 5 books. I sit down next to the TV. Oh, it's so good. So that's my drug of choice.
Superb. I'm inspired, Chris. I like the way you think. I like the way you carry yourself. There's so much to learn from you. I think everybody who's watching this session, there's so much to learn from you. If you guys find this inspiring, just type down and say inspiring, because there's so much of inspiration with how Chris carries himself. Doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, reads book to inspire himself. And I personally find this very inspiring. Thank you so much for inspiring us. Chris, there is a big problem with the world with respect to Facebook advertisements. They just don't know how to innovate in the 20% text rule. I'm sure you would have come across this a lot. So what do you recommend to those designers who are optimizing the 20% text space? And what is your tip to them?
This is about Facebook advertising?
This is about Facebook advertising. Are you not the Facebook advertising guy? Yeah.
I'm not the Facebook advertising person. We have young people who run the programs or ads for us, and so I don't know. But look, let's look at it from the other side. We are on Facebook, and we see ads. Some we interact with, and some we do not. There's simple ones. That's a very sales approach, which is like call to action, which is save 30% this weekend, last chance, Memorial Day sale kind of thing. And then you either click on it or you don't. And I get it, because that's a value prop, save money, and they're using, the law of scarcity on you. It's running out, there's scarce, and so we want to act, and we were going to make a purchase. But the ads that really are interesting to me are the ones that demonstrate something that I want to learn. And it's interesting, like, you could sell me more by teaching me than you can sell me by saying, buy this, buy this, buy this. So I think we need to take a different approach to this. Now, I used to work in advertising. This was the way I made a living in my life. And I think a lot of people think marketing and advertising are exactly the same. And so when we say, let's market our company, they follow the models of advertising, which is just to pound a message into you. And they think advertising like that drives customers away. It doesn't actually attract anybody. Like right now, the best way I think is if you want to sell a backpack to me, just show me how to use it. Show me the features and show me how it was built. Tell me a story about why you created this thing. Why does the world need another backpack? And if you watch the videos in Kickstarter, when they're trying to sell you a product, to get your money, they do a very different thing. They really enroll you in the why we need to do this. And so it's the art of storytelling at this point. And if you could do that, you probably do better with your advertising.
Well, Chris, somebody just asked this question.
Okay.
What is the quality that you look in a designer to hire them?
Okay. It's a given that your designs have to be really good. But that just gets you considered. That just gets you considered, okay? Because the world is full of really good designers from all over the world. And once I feel like what you do fits with what we're doing and there's a certain level of consistency, and I don't need to see 200 pieces. I need to see probably 3 to 5 at most. And I feel like, okay, you did it. You could do it consistently. The next thing is, who are you as a person? Can I talk to you? Would I want to hang out with you, or would I be annoyed? Like if we had to drive somewhere for an hour together, would I just be counting down the minutes to get out of the car? Or would I be sitting there thinking, my goodness, I wish this trip wasn't over because I enjoyed the conversation. I like who you are. I like your energy. I like your spirit. Here's the cool thing. There's no one right answer because I'm a very specific kind of person and I'm attracted to a very specific kind of person. But for every person out there, there's a different company and a different creative person who's going to be running it that you'll align with. So a lot of the challenge in life with getting a job is to find the right person. And I see this happen so often. People will message me and say, I'm miserable at work, my boss doesn't respect what I do, and I just think it's terrible here. They don't value what it is that we do. Well, who got that job? Who agreed to accept that paycheck? Right? That's on you. So you knew that about that boss. You knew this about this company. It's just you were so desperate to have the job, to get your career going, that you accepted it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put our big boy pants on, our big girl pants, and say, you know what? I needed this job. Show up every single day and give them your best 8 hours, if that's the hours that you work. Give them your best. And then at night, work on the thing that you dream about. And don't complain. And eventually, when you're ready to realize your dream, you're going to quit. You're going to either get another job or you're going to build a whole business around your passion. But sitting around taking somebody's money and complaining about it is only going to make yourself miserable and everybody around you miserable. And it's toxic. So don't do that. The other alternative is don't accept the job. Hold out. You know, live at home. Do another job that's a menial job so it doesn't sap away all your creative energy.
Well, thank you for that, Chris. Very, very deep insights there. I've also learned this while I was learning about you. Like how you say that it's important for you to know the history before you start designing. Before I start interviewing a person, I start digging about the past, learn about them, and then come up with questions. So I do understand that you're a strong believer of law of attraction. And can you share something about that with us today?
Yeah, I think the law of attraction is there's certain energy that you put out into the world, and those things become attracted to you. So here's the simple thing. The law of attraction works something like this too. When you're in the market for a convertible car, and you're thinking about a red convertible, all of a sudden you start to notice a lot of red cars, other convertibles on the road. And prior to that, you didn't notice them at all. And it's just when you kind of set your mind to something. So for example, if you're in a growth mindset, if you're very positive, if you're looking to create value in the world, all of a sudden you meet different kinds of people and different kinds of people want to help you. So there's a good chance that 10 years ago you had no idea who I was, even though I've been doing this for 25 plus years now, right? I've been doing this for a really long time. It's because my energy, my mindset, my focus, my motivation was very different. My motivation 10 years ago was to be a world-class design studio, to get more clients, to make more commercials, to work on higher profile projects. So that didn't really help people. It helped companies, it helped brands, and so that's who we were talking to. So in 2014, I started making content on YouTube. So my mindset shifted. I was in a more abundant mindset. I was trying to become a better teacher. So books that have the word teaching and workshops start to appeal to me. So we attract each other in a way.
Wow, fantastic. Um, and I've also learned something about the imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
Uh, One of the biggest problems people have while positioning themselves. What's your take on this? And also, while you say this, there's a very popular saying that fake it till you make it.
Hmm.
And what's your thought process with both of these? One is imposter syndrome and fake it till you make it.
Okay, they're all very similar, so let's talk about this. Because it's fake, it's imposter, I'm not real, I'm being disingenuous. And so let's talk about imposter syndrome. And this is a very natural way for creative people to describe their state. I just don't feel like I deserve this. I'm not good enough. I didn't go to the right school. I don't have that experience. I didn't work on those big brands. So these are things we say to ourselves all the time, and they repeat in our mind. And in the echo chamber of your brain, it can get very loud, this voice. And I think if we trace it back to the roots, where does this come from? It comes from well-intentioned individuals, usually our parents, our teachers, our family, our sibling, people in our society. They want to protect you from danger. They say, don't talk to strangers. Don't take candy from strangers. Look both ways before you cross the street. Don't run with scissors. All these rules, and most of them are very negative. So we learn to move through the world by limiting what it is that we can do and who we can be. If you do well, like say you're at a sporting event and you're an athlete and you hit a home run or you score a goal and you run into home base and then your parents say, you did a good job. But what's the very next thing that they say to you? Well, don't let that get to your head. Oh, so I did good, but I can't even savor the moment, right? Um, I can't take a moment to reflect on all the hard work that got me here. All the times I went to practice, stayed extra hours, all that kind of stuff. Well, that's going to be a problem. So we carry this belief with us into adulthood. And so we keep telling ourselves, you're not good enough, you don't deserve this. And this is where the imposter syndrome is born. Okay, so we operate in this world where we cannot recognize our own unique gifts and talents to the world. And so we're always underselling ourselves. We're always talking down to ourselves. Now here's the test. Here's the test, right? If we were sitting in an arena right now, in a theater, and I asked everybody, turn to each other and genuinely give the person a heartfelt compliment, one after the other. And what's going to happen? Everybody's going to feel super awkward and weird. Because even when you give people a compliment, they can't take it, right? If you insult them, they feel more comfortable with that. Like, your design isn't good enough. You need to try harder. That's really fine. But it's like, you know what? What you put out today really inspired me. It changed my mind about something. You're an incredibly thoughtful human being. That's what like make designers cringe. It's really weird how that works. Okay, so how do we overcome this? How do we get out of this hole that we've been building up all of our lives? Well, first we recognize that this is a thing, and this is a thing we want to change. So those two things alone are going to make the biggest difference in the world, because you can't achieve something until you recognize this is what you want to do. And just the act of recognizing it puts it into your focus. So law of attraction, it's working for us now. So now we want to make a change. We desire that change. And so the expression, fake it till you make it, is then the popular way of phrasing this, which means pretend to yourself for a minute that you could do something, because the brain does not know the difference between what you imagine vividly in your mind and an actual experience. It's the same. This is why when you wake up from a dream, you're like breathing heavy. You're like, did that happen? Did it not happen? And this has been proven in many scientific studies, okay? But the word fake it bothers a lot of people. So we're going to change that word because we don't want to be fake, okay? I'm okay with that word, but a lot of people are not.
A lot of
So
people
what
are
I
not.
want to,
They
they're not
misunderstood this. They misunderstood this phrase. Fake it till
entirely.
you make it. Right. Yeah.
Yes. They're like saying lie, make a falsehood, and that's not what we're going to say. So we're going to say, believe it till you achieve it. That's the way that we say that. And it's
Believe
the
it.
same idea. Believe
Super.
it till you achieve it.
You should do a carousel on this one. Okay.
Maybe
Believe
I
it.
have.
Believe it till you achieve it, or live
Yes.
that life till you achieve it. Basically, I think
Yes.
that's all. Yeah, because fake it till you make it. Because once I use this phrase, and a lot of people ask me this question, so you're trying to be a fake person. The fact
Right.
is, it's not being the fake person, but it's living the life that you actually want to live 10 years down the line. So you try to start working towards that right from at this moment. Amazing thoughts
Yeah.
there, Chris. There is so much deep science. Are you a very spiritual person? Just a very curious question now.
Yeah. I think I might be, but I don't actively try to pursue spirituality. I'm not sure. Okay, I was raised Catholic. I don't know what I believe today, but I'm interested in philosophies, and I think most of the world's religions are a way of thinking of philosophy. I don't meditate in the classical sense. I do think about the things I think about. I try to create much space between an action and then how I react to something, and I think about those kinds of things. So the short answer is I don't know. If people think I am, then I am. I'm not sure. But I want to say something about this, is that you need to realize something about this whole fake it thing and the imposter syndrome is everybody starts out, it's to some degree, as a faker. Like the day that I graduated school, I put on my business card, communication designer, graphic designer, but that was not my profession. Previously, I was a starving student. So when I handed out this business card to people, I was faking it because it would take years for me to become a professional graphic designer. And the minute you start doing something is the beginning of a journey towards where you want to go. And you just have to realize it's just one continuum. So to sit there and say, like, I don't like the word faking, it's like everybody's a faker. The minute you start doing something new, you're a faker. So I play tennis, I'm a fake tennis player. Until I put in enough hours and practice and get good at it, I'm a faker. This is what happens. Accept it.
Wow. I love the fact that you've accepted it. Yeah, okay, I'm faker. Doesn't matter. Cool.
Doesn't
All right.
matter.
True. Yeah, absolutely. It's your life, and what matters is how you take care of it and how you live it. So, how does it matter what people define you as? Cool. So now, where do you get your design ideas? Like, do you have any sources that you recommend people, saying that go check these websites? That's something that you would recommend personally. Of course, the Future is one thing that you would recommend for people. But besides that, what else, where else do you think people can find design inspiration?
Yeah, so here's an idea that I learned from Austin Kleon. He wrote the book Show Your Work and Steal Like an Artist and Keep Going. And I think he had something very interesting because he was trying to find out if an idea he had was original or not. And then he started looking into originality. So he created this concept called the genealogy of ideas. And it's kind of interesting, right? So if you hear an idea from me, you might want to go and research that and see where I got it from. And oftentimes I tell you who I get it from because it's included in the carousel that I share. And then you say, well, who influenced that person? And you keep going down. So it's a family tree of ideas. And so you're going to see the base level, and as you dig deeper and deeper, it's going to probably all point to something. And it's kind of interesting. Like one of my biggest influences is a guy named Jim Rohn. He wrote 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness. And Jim Rohn's mentor is a guy named Earl Shoaff. I think that's his name. And Earl Shoaff, maybe his inspiration for him was the Bible. They're like from the Midwest somewhere. So it's like they all kind of trace back to something. And I think we need to do that. We need to go and dig back. So when you see something on Instagram, when you see something on the website, don't just stop there because they're getting it from some other place. And I know this can sound like an endless hole that you go down, the rabbit hole, but I love going down the rabbit hole. I love chasing it down to where it begins so I can have my own interpretation of the idea. Now, when I was going to art school, we were learning life drawing, where they would have a model stand there and you would draw the model. And one of the things that we had to do was like 50 drawings a week, which is a lot of drawings. And so I don't have access to models to look at. So the teacher says, look at photographs. But whatever you do, don't look at other drawings and paintings. And I thought, like, why? Because I'm influenced by these people. And my teacher at the time told me, because they've already made decisions for you about how to draw the hand and how to shade it, how to render it in 3 dimension. You want to have your own interpretation of that. And so that stuck with me. Like, we want to go back to the source code, if you will. We don't want to look at a 38th generation copy because at this point, the fidelity of the copy is very low.
Wow. Superb. So Jim Rohn, how do you
Jim
spell
Rohn.
this? R-O-H-N is the second name?
R-O-H-N, correct.
Fantastic.
R-O-H-N, Jim Rohn.
All of you, yeah, I think many of them have typed that there in the chat, so people have started registering this.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you some personal, one more technical question before I shoot some personal question. One of this is, which is the tool that you recommend for typography? Any app that people can use for typography based posts?
Yes, absolutely. If you're doing a single page layout, and it doesn't have like 1,000 words on it, I would recommend Adobe Illustrator. And if you're going to do, if you do multi-page design, especially for print or an annual report, something like that, I would recommend InDesign or its equivalent, okay? So you want to use the tool designed for a certain thing. Like you could animate in Photoshop. You can animate in Microsoft Word, I think, but that's not the best tool for it. So I like to use purpose-built tools for the tasks that I'm doing because it's designed to do something really well.
Wow. Chris, thank you for all the inputs that you've given. It's really valuable. Chris, how old are you, by the way?
I am I'm 48.
I was just thinking you should be 33 or 34. Wow, that's amazing. I'm sure if I would have asked people to guess what is Chris' age, everybody would have typed 33, 34, 35. This is amazing. When do you plan? Have you visited India, or are you planning to visit India anytime soon?
I have never visited India. The closest I came was Egypt, but I was planning to visit India this year, and there were some plans, and also with Africa. But of course, with what's going on in the world right now, all my travel plans have been canceled. I've canceled my own personal vacation plan. So maybe in 2021 that we can do this, and I'd love to come to India.
Superb. I would love to host you when you're here in India. Please give me a shout out. I would love to receive you wherever you are. So I'll catch up with you in person. Other than designs, Chris, what are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about learning. I'm passionate about helping people. I'm passionate about philosophy and understanding how our brain works. Science intrigues me. If you're a curious person, there's lots of things you're going to be passionate about. And I think one of my problems is I got to rein it in, you know? And I talk about this quite often. Reading is consumption. Reading is inputting, right? But if you never do anything with it, then you're hoarding. And the hoarding is not good. It's like when there's a shortage of toilet paper and people hoard toilet paper. What are you going to do with that? You only have one butt. Let's just, that's all you can use. So what's really important is not so much about feeding your brain, but about what you retain and, more importantly, what you're able to implement. So one of the problems I have is I'm so hungry for this information, I'm just hoarding it right now. So I'm not really retaining it until I implement it, until I teach it, until I share it. And the act of teaching it and sharing it creates value for the person and for me. Jim Rohn said this, right? What is it? Wealth and capital is your ability to translate or convert knowledge and experience. So this is really important. Now, how do I translate that? Well, I just literally translated it right now because I read a book. It went into my brain. It sits here, and it becomes words that I say to you. And if you get some kind of inspiration or clarity, then you're going to say, well, Chris has really helped me out a lot. And this is the really cool thing. I do want to share this with you. Random strangers from all over the internet not only message me every single day with messages of how they've been helped, but they send me money. They literally just send me money.
Yeah, I know that. I know in your links you have a link, buy me a chai, buy me a tea.
Yeah.
I think that's where they pay you money. Wow.
Yes. Right. Because people say, somebody will say, when I started out in the industry, I charged $200. I just sold a $25,000 project yesterday, Chris, and it's all thanks to you. So my whole thing is great. You know how reciprocity works? I help you, you help me. And that's it.
The more you give, the more you receive. The law of universe.
Yes.
Okay, Chris, do you love reading one book many times, or do you read multiple books? What's your style?
It depends on my mood, but I generally read one book many times.
Same here. So I just read. I have 4 books under my table all the time, and I think I've read it almost 15 times. I always believe that you should become the person that the book wants you to become, especially when you fall in love with that book. And so I keep doing that. Okay. This is the last question, Chris. We thought that we'll do less questions and we'll go deep, but I think we almost covered all the questions. So I
think you did.
Yeah. What's that one-line message you will convey to all those people who are, okay, I'm going to give you these examples and you just have to give them one-line message. Number 1, bad at designing.
Wait, I don't understand this game. So you say bad at designing.
Yeah, you have to
Okay,
give
I
them
see. And then I
okay.
just give you
It's
one response, one sentence response.
yeah, people who are bad at designing, what is that you want to say them?
Keep practicing.
Fantastic. People who are learning designing.
Find your own voice.
Wow. And people who are awesome designers. They're really good. They've been doing great for themselves.
Share the wealth.
Fantastic. Chris, first of all, dhanyavad. Thank you from India and from bottom of my heart, gratitude for doing this because it means a lot to me personally and there's a lot to learn. And my entire team who's watching this show today, I'm sure they should be equally inspired. And everybody in India who's watching this show right now should be inspired from what you have been doing. So one last request, I would be happy to have a guest post from you on my feed. If you feel like contributing, I would be very happy because I'm really inspired by what you're doing. So maybe some of your quotes that you strongly believe in, I think I've become an ardent fan of what your work is and who you are as a person. So thank you so much for coming live today. It means a lot. And thank you for accepting this offer on a very quicker note. Loving you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Saurav. And maybe I will create a guest post for you.
Fantastic.
We'll see. Yeah, it's a lot of work, so we'll see. Yes.
Yeah. Take your time. There's no hurry.
Yeah.
So you take your time. I would be happy to host one of your posts on my feed.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope to see you in India.
Sure. All of you, if you just enjoyed the session, do take screenshot, tag Chris, and let everybody know what did you learn in today's session. So just do this. I think we should just give us a quick smile so that all of them can just take a screenshot. Thank you, Chris. Loving you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye, Saurav.
Thank you. So it was a pleasure hosting Chris, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's session. There was so much to learn from him. Some of you asked me, what are some of the books which is always inside or under my desk and something that I keep reading? One is Life Mysteries, Mysteries from Osho. So I think I would have read this book almost 20, 30 times, and I open any chapter and find my answer. I have lived my life. I've started living my life differently after I started reading this book. It's just amazing. The second book, which I always keep, is The Daily Teachings, The Secret. So I read one quote from this book every single day, and I believe that's the quote for me today. And there's so much that I believe in right now in universe because of this one book, and this is a life-changing book. The third thing that I have is Robin Sharma's Daily Inspiration. So if I've become a better leader today, it's because of Robin. So I've read all the books of Robin. So instead of carrying all the books with me, the crux of all the books is right now inside this book. And I enjoy reading this book as well. And plus I have one of the books of, this is a little heavy one. This is of Sam Owens from Consulting. Accelerator Part 1, Part 2. There are two such books, pretty heavy. You can see it's almost like a 100,000 rupees worth investment, but it's like really crazy deep learning. Like the kind of intensity that has gone in understanding the way consulting business or the way the entire positioning of an individual works. I think there's a lot to learn from these 4 books. And of course, there is one book which is missing on my desk today, is Power of Now, which is Eckhart Tolle's book. That's always with me. And Sahil has been very excited since quite some time. He's wanting to say you all hello. Sahil, come here. He's been behind me that when can I come live and do all my entertaining stuff. So say hi.
Hi.
All right. So if you guys enjoyed the show, I'm going to definitely save the live session right now so that you can watch it again. I'm going to have a lot more other international speakers trying to bring them India virtually through live sessions on Instagram. Let your friends know. Do not forget to take screenshots, share it, tag us, tag me, tag Chris. It will be just the small gratitude that you can pay us for learning from Chris or learning from me. That's the small little thing that I would want you to do. So I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you learned a lot, and loving you all so much. Thank you so much, and just have a good night. Goodbye.